You're listening to AchtungMillwall, broadcasting from the beautiful South Birmingham. Accept no substitute.
Hello, dear listeners. Welcome to AchtungMillwall World Cup edition, special series of editions over the course of the World Cup, featuring guests that catch my fancy during the course of the next 4 or 5 weeks, however long the thing lasts. Joining us tonight is a very welcome guest. It's Aodhan Brownlee of our Pundit Games. How are you, Aodhan? How you doing, mate?
Hi, Nick. Yeah, thanks for having us. Very well, thanks. Great game today with England, so on a bit of a high, really. It's good.
Yeah, it was a strange old game, I thought. I thought for the first half an hour, we were looking, I don't know, the game was just starting to get towards the stodgy point where you wonder when the goals would come. But when they did start to flow, we looked pretty good. I mean, each of the chances were well taken, I thought. We started to flow quite nicely once the first goal went in, mate.
Yeah, I mean, Iran, I've never seen a team in a World Cup that sit so deep. They were literally, the centre forward was practically on his own area. And that's them games where you think they'll get a corner and they'll do something here. Certainly after, when Maguire got pulled down, you did sort of think worry for the worst. But I mean, Jude Bellingham's some player, isn't he? I think
he's huge, mate.
For my opinion, I've rarely seen him play, and I think a lot of England haven't. And then to see him like that was just unbelievable.
No, fantastic. I mean, each of the goals, I'd say, were great chances, well taken chances. Bellingham obviously opened it up on 35. I've got to say, I mean, let's have a bit of open disclosure here, Aodhan. You're a Newcastle fan, richest club in the world, mate. So you will be well versed in the wiles of VAR, which we still, fortunately, in the Championship don't get to see other than certain games, I suppose, on TV games. I mean, I don't know what the point of VAR is if that wasn't a penalty inside 3 or 4 minutes when Maguire's being rugby league tackled. What's the point of it if it don't give those decisions? I don't get it.
No. I've been at Newcastle. I think it was Bournemouth earlier on in the season. I was there, and Newcastle got a penalty, and no one in the ground even thought it was, and it was dead weird, and it takes time. It's just, but the thing that winds me up is literally the one below, the Championship doesn't have it. And it's that discontinue of people playing on a Sunday morning. It's a different sport now. It's completely different, and I think one thing that if football's going to continue this path, it's going to lose more and more of its charm, more and more accessibility for the vast majority of the population, rather than just the top 1% of unbelievable players.
Well, this is a question I was thinking to ask you because, listeners will need to know. I mean, Aodhan's from Pundit Games, so we got to talk about a week or two ago when we set up this arrangement to help promote Pundit Games. And I wanted to ask you because for me, as a Millwall fan, I mean, we've played not that long ago. Newcastle were a team that we would have played in on the level, so to speak. Not a million miles apart. I know that obviously Newcastle with a history and representing a city and so on. But is there still a sense? How do you see it going? A sense of connection as a Millwall fan. I feel connected to my club. The players are. They feel part of who we are. The influx of money at Newcastle, and I'm sure there's a fantastic side to that. And sitting third in the Premier League at the moment, that's the most obvious part of that. Do you still feel the connection to them, Aodhan, or how do you see that going, mate? Because that's a club built on that, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a tough question because if you think about what you've asked me is something that happened a year ago when the majority of Newcastle fans had just come out of a life sentence under Ashley, where there was that even more of a disconnect between the fans and the stadium. And now, I think it's only going to go one direction. But I think from where the club was under Ashley and that disconnect there will be a bigger disconnect as you get bigger names in and all this sort of everything becomes a lot more corporate. They've just signed a deal with Saudi Airlines, for instance. Yeah, it's going down one track where. But I think a lot of Newcastle fans will feel as though we've had this, in terms of connection, we've had that before. The ground will change its name. It won't be St James's Park much longer. No, and they've seen it before, and I think it's a strange one because you can sort of say, yeah, you've lost that, but They've not won a league since 1955, or whatever it is. So it'd be nice to do that as well.
Well, this is the price of authenticity. I mean, I'm speaking as a Millwall fan, obviously. We have this debate. No one's coming in with big money for Millwall, so this is all hypothetical from our point of view. But you know, obviously, the aim is to get promoted to the Premier League, where you join a global operation. I mean, it's Newcastle now are going to be a club that sits at the top table because they have the resources with Saudi Arabia behind them. Do we want to lose who we are effectively and become something else? The price of not joining that top table is you don't win nothing. I mean, Newcastle's last honours were a long while ago, weren't they? I mean, the Fairs Cup, I think, would be the last time. So you go around in circles on it, mate. I mean, I don't have an answer to that question. And
would it not be nice to go to Chelsea and West Ham every year, twice?
For one season, I think that's all before we got either thrown out of the league or relegated, whichever came first for us. But it would be fun. That's for sure. Anyway, back to World Cup. I wanted to ask that question, listeners, because it occurred to me when I was speaking to.
I hope I'll give you a good. Like, it's very murky and it's all very new still. And you know, we've lost one game this season, and it's to say that from you know, like coming out with 15 years under Ashley is something that's, you know, unheard. Like, you couldn't fathom it. It's too early, I think, Nick, to give you a more formative answer.
Yeah, no, I mean, I can get that. I suppose you've got to enjoy it whilst the ride is there, Aodhan, and you know, we'll see how it goes. Yeah, I mean, the World Cup is I was thinking today, I mean, and Newcastle comes into it in a sense, and it's the amount of expectation and weight that's heaped on our players. There's this hoo-ha today about the wearing the armband before the start of the game, and you know, there's the whole human rights issues of playing it in Qatar. I won't even touch on the Saudi Arabian side of it. There's so much. I mean, from a football point of view, there's so many expectations and so much weight heaped upon players' shoulders. It's actually quite nice to see an enjoyable, good game of football today, because that's actually what we're all here for, really. And the politics is, you know, some people's world revolves around politics, and you can't avoid it. But blimey, it's nice to get away from it for 90 minutes at least, Aodhan, don't you think?
Yeah, and I think weirdly, I don't want to speak prematurely, but Southgate's got a bit of a knack in competitions, hasn't he? Because they had no, you know, they're talking about there was no form coming in, and it was such a refreshing performance, and the way he went about it, there was, I think, everyone but the 11 English players on the field felt nervous about how deep it started, and you know, everyone's like, well, we're not going to break these down. We couldn't do anything for the past 2 years, never mind. So how are we going to break this Iranian team down with 11 behind the ball? But no one seemed worried. I think.
No, it was refreshing, wasn't it? Yeah.
I hate to say that. I think, you know, you won't like hearing this, but I think Rice had a good game. Letting him run things, I think, was nice, and they work really well together. And that midfield is pretty scary. I'd like to see Maddison instead of Mount, though. I think you'll be happy to hear that. Yeah,
I agree with that. I mean, I thought going forwards across, once the goals started to flow, once we started getting the goals, I thought we looked really good. As a Millwall fan, we can't enjoy any big moment in our lives without looking for the misery angle. I do wonder whether, because in the second half, I mean, we carried on scoring, but Iran started to press forwards with nothing to lose a little bit. I just wonder, Aodhan, whether we look a little bit defensively fragile. I mean, I think Maguire's great at set pieces and will continue to cause problems for sides. But defensively, we just look a little bit iffy. But then again, I mean, each of the games I've watched so far this tournament, I've seen the four of them there. When USA and Wales are playing as we speak, no one's really looked outstanding defensively. They all look a bit fragile. So maybe that's just the modern way of football.
I think I was just watching Holland, and they had Van Dijk, De Ligt, and Ake, and they looked nervy. They looked nervy. I think what was refreshing is about the past 2 years, it felt like Southgate was, you know, trying to compensate for whether it be Maguire's lack of pace or some other things of like not really trusting the fullbacks as such. So he's still been quite defensive in his midfield sort of output. But I think today, to set out that 4-3-3 was a definite statement of saying, you know what, we're going to go for this now. And it felt like he'd opened up a lot of more, you know what, we might concede, but we're going to score more goals than these today. Which, as a Newcastle fan, thinking back to the the entertainers, we'll
the heyday. Yeah.
So that, I don't mind that. And I think if you're going to go to a tournament, you're going to have to go for it, because you will get found out by some great teams, won't you? So it was good.
Yeah. No, more power. I mean, he's had some kind of I don't know. He was booed off the Molyneux pitch when England got beat 4-0 in one of the prelim games, and maybe he's had some kind of road to Damascus, road to Qatar conversion, because it's great to see. These are great players. Watching England this afternoon, I thought, wow, going forwards, we look like contenders for this. I mean, we've yet to see what the Brazilians look like, Aodhan. We don't know what the French, how they're going to shape up, the Argentines, and so on. They seem to be the big names. I'm just looking at Ladbrokes, Brazil by some distance favourites to win it.
Argentines as well.
Yeah, and then England and France and Spain. All the usual suspects, I suppose, in that sense. But it's just nice to be watching that kind of football and to be thought of as contenders. I mean, it's I can get some sense of what it's like to be a Newcastle fan. It's it's like a white light is opening up in front of us.
I mean, that is still new to me, but I think it's well worth thinking about the group as well, because the group has so many, political connotations with it. We've got the derby with Wales. I think America is more like, it really hurt to lose to them, really hurt. And then obviously with when America play Iran, there's far too many political connotations with that than there should be within the game itself. So I think the game itself, the group itself, is far more sticky, sort of in paper and sort of within the eco climate of football than it really is to the 11 lads on the field, which is really refreshing for them, I guess.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. I mean, as we're speaking, it's 0-0 USA and Wales. It's just 12 minutes in on my screen here, so it's going to be interesting to see how the USA look. I do wonder. Everyone's always looking for the dark horse of the tournament.
Did Millwall centre forward who was for Wales? Is it Morrison?
Morrison was, he's a Millwall kind of legendary figure, because he was he was I think he's fourth in our list of highest scorers, and he was somehow via Stevenage and relations he qualified for Wales. So he's a Welsh centre forward. I don't know that he was terribly successful up front for Wales. With some players, Millwall's a kind of club where some players find their theatre and their stage at the Den, and you can never really get away from it. They try. He went to Norwich and Leeds, never quite took off. And other players, just good players. I'm thinking now the likes of Lewis Grabban, for example, and there've been others over time. Don't take off at the Den, but do elsewhere. It's a kind of I don't know. It must be searing experience to play your football in front of the Millwall crowd, and some love it, some can't do it. But yeah, Morrison is retired now. He's gone into management, and not terribly successfully so far. He got sacked at Cardiff quite recently. Let's talk about the game that we're promoting. Listeners need to know that Pundit Games. It's a great game. It's a football trivial pursuit, Aodhan. How would you describe it, mate? The game that we're promoting.
I think what it definitely is an opportunity to sort of take a trip down memory lane with stuff that you may have dropped out your mind, and probably rightfully so, for the whether it's for good or bad reason. But it's a way of getting together with mates and talking about times that have been through football.
I'd agree with that. Yeah,
and it's a way of just creating an atmosphere of a football game over a board, over some beers, and just having a great time. And it's quite unique in the fact that every answer is actually a footballer. So away from what the question is, and we've got our own sort of tone and our own way that we describe the question, you can then take that off how you want to take it and talk about the player itself. Similarly, now with Morrison, just then we see that this question really brings anecdotal stories or sort of good chats and conversations, as well as the atmosphere of getting a question right and wrong and scoring and beating another group of lads. it's all about the atmosphere. We sort of, it is a board because there is a board game, but it's more of a sort of atmospheric trivia game. We like to sort of describe it as.
Yeah, I mean, just to describe it for listeners, it's laid out as a football pitch. So you're basically answering, is it 4 or 5 questions, Aodhan, to score a goal? You get 4 or 5 questions right, and then you score a goal. Played over 45 minutes, so you've got that kind of football angle. And we've got various categories of questions. So you've got, it's great to see the EFLs and EFL box of questions. England in the 2000s, England in the 1990s, Europe, and all sorts of categories. So think about Trivial Pursuit, and you've got various categories, and there's easy and hard. I must say, some of the easy ones are quite hard.
The guy who sort of our author, who comes in, he knows his stuff. We were in Germany, he was chatting with a German guy about a Danish player who was playing in the German 3rd division, and we were like, what is he? He knows his stuff.
Right.
But yeah, we want it to be a challenge as well. And if you do know your football, you're going to come out on top. I think what you've touched on there as well is the categories is sort of cross-generational, and it is an opportunity for to show that they are, the son might be a little bit quicker than them now, but they don't know everything they know.
No,
early around the game, and grandparents, it is cross-generational, and we're sort of pinning it like that because we've noticed that the case. Certainly come up to Christmas, which is our goal as well.
Yeah, no, it's a great game. I think you're right, because I think there's a 2010s decade, there's a 2000s, 1990s, and so on. So, as ever, the further back you go, Aodhan, you'll find this in your life, mate. The further back you go, the crystal clearer it gets, and the more recent you get, the more it becomes a big fuzz. And as you say, that reaches across the family. It's a Trivial Pursuit game, effectively, based on football. And I recommend it. I had a cracking afternoon playing it the other week. So as you say, it's a great way to pass a family afternoon or mates afternoon or whatever you're doing at Christmas. There is a discount this week. We've stretched Black Friday all week long, Aodhan, haven't we? We've got it all.
Yeah, it's a Black Week actually.
Black Week. Black Week. That's a good point.
Everyone else doesn't. Black Friday doesn't exist anymore. It's going to. I think November's going to be Black Month soon. It's Black Friday. It's our Black Friday deal, which we're knocking £20 off the game this week.
Yeah, so that's up till all week long. Is it up to Friday? Will it run, or will it up to the weekend, mate? When does that? How long does that run for?
Yeah, it's live now, and it'll run till the weekend.
So you can get Sunday, You can get 20 quid off of it, listeners, with the code LIONS at the checkout, and that way your podcast AchtungMillwall will benefit. And of course, that means that the Lions Food Hub will benefit, because we pass all of our money on to the Lions Food Hub. I recommend it as a game, Pundit games.
I'd look, check us out on the Instagram, Twitter, our website. We've got plenty of videos and footage of people playing it if you want to have a look there. But yeah, any questions, send it over. We're really happy to sort of take feedback and any ideas from anyone. So let us know.
So we've got a website here, Pundit Games, Pundit, punditgames.co.uk, and on Twitter it's at Pundit Games, and there's a £20 discount all week long. That's brilliant. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule, Aodhan, to come on the show and talking a bit of football, mate. It's great to talk to you again.
No, I've really enjoyed it, and happy to come on anytime. I think we're really impressed with the podcast. Really keen to work with you. So love what you're doing with the food bank as well.
Lovely stuff. Yeah, no, it's a great cause. We're getting back on the politics now, mate. There are too many of those, unfortunately, in our society these days. So anything we can all do to help all of the food banks is all to the good. Do you follow the Championship at all? Do you keep tabs on now that you're the richest club in the world, mate? I suppose it's all Barcelona, Real Madrid, and the top table for you now. Do you keep an eye on the Championship?
It's hard not to, where I live, to look at Borough and Sunderland. They're next to each other on the table, and obviously I think Borough's, I think 2 now. But the first game they won was Sunderland. And it is, you miss that. You do miss, when we were chatting
the edge of the local derby. Yeah, that's a thing that is. I suppose Chelsea would say. I don't know. I mean, Arsenal, Chelsea, all these clubs, West Ham. You lose that as the money dilutes it. I suppose, doesn't it? It'll be the Northeastern derbies are always these are hotbed. This is a hotbed of football. I mean, again, we come back to Qatar. We're playing a World Cup in a place that doesn't play football naturally, and yet you got these hotbeds of football where you could play a World Cup in the Northeast, Aodhan.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be great. Yeah, you're right. I think just on that last Holland game, they said 41,000 people in the stadium. It was 3/4 full, and it only holds 40,000 people, so that's impossible. I
think they've been drinking too much Bud Zero at the fan park.
Even my simple northeastern mind can work that one out. So it is. You do miss, and like the way that just the chat at work and all the other bits. Just who cares if Man United? And, you want to beat your local team and wind up your mates and wind up your mates' dads and granddads and everyone else.
Absolutely. I mean, it's a huge if we were to get promoted via the playoffs, probably. If we were to achieve Premier League status, I would love to have like a little CCTV camera on the Premier League's meeting that morning after Millwall. Somehow have scrambled their way through the playoffs and got past, maybe avoid invading the pitch at Wembley, and have got into the Premier League. That would be a wonderful thing, don't you think, Abe?
Do look good, and I think you may feel a bit like Newcastle, where this World Cup's definitely come at the wrong time. Things were going quite well. You've got a game in hand, haven't you? As well.
Yeah. Well, we come back a week early from the World Cup break. Originally, the championship was 4 weeks, and we're due back originally on December the 10th. But they've arranged the Sunderland away fixture. Playing at 12:30 at Sunderland on a Saturday. With the World Cup on. But anyway, it's been arranged a week early on December the 3rd. So obviously returning in a couple of weeks' time now. So it means the break away from Millwall is not that long. But again, all this nonsense that you hear without football, without fans, football's nothing. I mean, they arranged the Sunderland away on Saturday 12:30 with the World Cup on the go.
The Newcastle's, was it last game or one before? They moved the Southampton game to 2:00 on a Sunday.
Yeah.
It's just a joke. That's
the way it is. Yeah, that's the price. But I do think the Premier League would, at least for one season, would be an experience with Millwall as part of it. So let's keep our fingers crossed.
Weirder things have happened, haven't they? So I mean, I wish you all the best, and you never know, might see it at St James's or wherever.
Absolutely, mate. I've never been to St James's Park. It's one of the there's two grounds I've never been to. One is Newcastle, and the other one is Sunderland Stadium of Light. So I doubt I'll get to this one in a few weeks' time. But certainly a trip to St James's Park will be on my agenda, mate.
What's the
be
name
great to get up.
The Dutch lad that Millwall have got, isn't he shit hot?
You don't want to know about him. You don't need to know about him, Aodhan.
I've heard this
with your bloody money, flashing it around.
Yeah,
Zian Fleming. He's become an instant star. He's kind of a kind of player we're not really used to. Skillful flair midfielders that can hit unusual angled shots, and he's come in. I mean, a record signing. I mean, again, this is another difference between the top table and a middle level, say, championship club. I mean, our top signing at 1.7 million. So that's the kind of difference in scale. It's incredible now, football, isn't it? But he certainly seems to be a find.
What's his chance? Amsterdam, but he hates West Ham or something.
Zian Fleming. He comes from Amsterdam and he fucking hates West Ham.
Oh.
Sung to the Dean Martin song. That's Amore. Yeah. There we are, mate.
Yeah.
Aodhan, great to talk to you, mate. Thanks for coming on the show. One more shout for Pundit. Punditgames.co.uk. £20 discount all week. Get on it. Big thank you, Aodhan Brownlee. And thank you to you too, dear listeners. We'll be back with another World Cup recording another day. Bye for now.
Bye now.
Achtung, Millwall.